I've never told this story to anyone other than my closest friends, but this felt like a good outlet to finally get it off of my chest. There's something called the 6 degrees of separation theory, which basically states that everyone in the world is separated by at most 6 steps. Well, I am separated from Trent Reznor, from Nine Inch Nails, by just one step, and it was due to a stalker. Back in 2006, I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and I had just joined a pretty particular punk band, which mixed a very loud sound with cabaret like visuals. We never made it big, but our act was appealing enough that it got us the attention of many people. One of them was a strange girl who was always chain smoking and had a weird aura to herself, and who was always wearing a jacket on her shoulder, meaning her arms were not in the sleeves, and who eventually said she wanted to be our manager. She said she was friends with Slash from Guns N' Roses, that she had managed a couple of bands when she used to live in New Orleans and whatnot, so we decided to hear her out. Our band was sorta crazy one, so drugs passed around freely in our parties. This girl, she told us her name was Christy something, would provide us with party favors sometimes, would tell us that she was worth $2 million, that she had 5 cars, that she worked in this luxury building, and that had a huge house somewhere in the suburbs. See, the thing is, she was always picking cigarette butts from the streets and smoking the filters like she was a homeless person. Something about her just didn't click particularly with me. She always came to see us in a sort of fancy SUV, so we went along with her stories for the most part. Eventually, Christy fell hard for me, told me she was divorcing her husband and that she wanted to be with me. I was intrigued by her, and so I started testing all her stories. I asked to visit her at her office, and she would always make excuse as to why I couldn't, until eventually she told me her office had closed down and that they were looking for new space. I asked her why she was using the same car if she had like 5, and again, excuses and more excuses. I asked to visit her at her huge house, and same thing. She would come up with off reasons as to why she couldn't have me for a visit, mostly that her husband was still there and whatnot. I started to get sick of all her excuses and eventually confronted her that, well, she was a big fat liar. She got desperate and started to make more excuses, and I just told her to get lost. She had had a previous fight with some of my bandmates before, so she had already been discarded as our prospective manager. She started calling me every day asking to see me, and I would constantly tell her no, until one day she showed up at my house around 5 a.m., apparently wasted. She said she had picked up this guy friend of hers to go party, but that he was too drunk and that he was now passed out in her car, and also she didn't know what to do with him. I looked across the street and saw no one in her car, and she said it was because this guy was laying down. I really couldn't bother going all the way to her car and check it out. She eventually started crying, and I felt bad enough for her that I let her come into my living room. It was at this point that she took off her jacket, and for the first time ever I realized she was missing her entire left arm. I was already giddy by her showing up at my house drunk and everything, that I didn't dare asking how it happened. I know this has nothing to do with my story, but it was something that just added to the already weird atmosphere. I hung up with her for a while. At this point I started doubting that she was actually drunk. I gave her a coffee and told her please never show up at my house like that again, and eventually told her to just drop the guy off at a Waffle House and then just go home. It might not have been the most responsible thing to tell someone in that state to drive, but I just wanted the whole thing to be over. And like I said, I felt that she was acting drunk the whole time, and she seemed okay enough to drive. She eventually left, and that was that for the night. Next day, again she started stalking me by my phone to the point I just stopped picking up. I worked early hours, and she would call me at 2 or 3 a.m. completely drunk. I eventually got sick of it all and told her to stay away from me and to never call me again. She complied, and for about a week it seemed like the whole thing was history. Around 6 days later, she calls me again when I was at work. I started telling her that she wasn't supposed to call me, but she said that she could finally invite me to her house and that she wanted me to come visit her. All sorts of red flags went up for me, so of course I told her to forget about it and just hung up on her. She again started calling me at late hours to the point that I just had to turn off my phone at night. Otherwise, I would never get a good night's sleep. I remember it was a Friday. After waking up, I had a voicemail on my phone, left at around 2 a.m. I checked it out, and it was her saying, "Hi Max, I just took 200 pills, and I've been drinking all night. I just wanted to say goodbye, and that I love you. Good luck with the rest of your life." Okay, so needless to say, I got totally weirded out. I was so sick of her lies, I just deleted the message, completely assuming it was one of her tricks to get me to call her. I decided to forget about it and went to work. So the next Tuesday after that, I get another voicemail from her phone, but this time it was a guy's voice. "Hi Max, this is Christy's husband. I'm calling her friends in her contact list to let them know that she passed away last Friday, and we're doing a memorial for her in downtown Atlanta tomorrow. If you want to go, please call me back so I can give you the address." I can't even explain how I felt at that point. I was shocked and tried to evade the news by thinking that this was some guy that Christy had manipulated into calling me, just to get me somewhere at some time. But of course, the whole situation didn't make much sense to me. This guy eventually called another of my bandmates, whose name was in Christie's contact list as well. I had told my band about this entire situation, so my bandmate, who had been suspicious of this girl for a while, started prying this guy for more information. We eventually learned that she used a fake name with us the entire time, that her real name was Amber, and that she was using a made-up name because she had been in trouble with the law. We googled her, and sure enough, turns out she had stalked Trent Reznor in the past and even managed to steal his credit card information. She even was arrested for it. I was stunned at this point, unsure of what to do next. We never went to the memorial. We were way too suspicious to do it. To this day, I still don't know if this girl committed suicide for real, or if the whole thing was just a sham to get me into some trouble. But since I never heard from her again, I doubt it. Or maybe she's been using a fake name ever since and decided to move on with her life. I'll never know, but it's definitely the worst way to get 1 degree of separation with someone famous. I got rid of my cell phone after that. It took me 3 years until I felt okay enough to get a new one. I really never wanna go through something like that ever again.